Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and more Monster Hunter Wilds talk. Today we have some more news in an unexpected update from IGN. We have two kind of updates about Wilds, this time about weapons and the careful choices and designs, as well as some really cool stuff to do with the Hope set. Now I didn't expect more information like this after, the big black flame reveal stuff like a day before they dropped these two. With so little of January left, it was a surprise. But what's so special about this? Well, as part of it, it highlights one of the most potent points of criticism for World, and that being the bland and very uninspired weapon designs for quite a few various weapons. The ones I'm talking about instantly when I say that, I'm sure. The weapons that look like default ore or bone weapons, and then you've got like scales from X monster or parts of it just sort of slapped onto it. And most offensively, this was done for a lot of the new monsters in World. Especially offensive was the big bad at the end of the original game, Xeno'jiiva. So I was disappointed when I saw those designs for quite a few of the new monsters, but hey, they're not like big scary monsters, maybe early or middling ones, but when it was the final boss, one that was essentially this massive, almost alien-like creature, ended up with this as one of its weapon designs. I mean, what a waste. And in these talks here, it's an important topic to talk about, they bring up. But the most important thing to give you right away from that is that they've confirmed they will not be doing that to weapon designs for Wilds, and hopefully never again. So let's get into it. Now, as part of a topic to do with the Hope opening set and the sets and designs in general, IGN was talking about this reflection on exactly this topic, how fans did not like the World weapon designs in regards to what we call the bits of monster on a stick concept. Wilds is indeed somewhat of a successor to World, and I think it's lovingly referred to quite a lot as World 2.0. But with that comes similar concerns. Will those boring weapon designs come back? It was the director for Wilds, Udra, that addressed this in said interview. He said exactly this: weapon designs in Monster Hunter World generally retained a certain form, but they featured a customized appearance based on which monster materials were used. However, in Wilds, each weapon has its own unique design. That's a very careful way to say that World weapons at large had ore weapon bases or bone weapon bases, with just parts of the associated monster slapped on. But now, that is crystal clear confirmation that each weapon in Wilds will have its own unique design. And we've seen quite a few of that in examples from weapon trailers or different gameplays. A great example of that will be the unique concepts like the lala barina stinger that the S&S seems to have, or instead, when you think of dual blades in the same monster, it was more like a sickle and hook concept in a pretty stark contrast. The only thing that had me slightly concerned was more the base ore weapons that we see return. Or say, like Duna's heavy bowgun that did appear during some footage against Rompompolo from IGN. It had, some unique elements, like sort of wavy fin concept on either side, but the center did look like a familiar hunk of metal, so I was unsure. So having this confirmation is certainly a big relief. Looking at the variety of designs we've seen so far, there is some realism there, if that's what we're going to call it. But obviously they went too far that way in terms of World. In Rise, we did see the return of more comical, silly weapons. There was literally a hammer that was basically a teddy bear that you were slapping monsters with. But alongside those silly things, we did see a new pile of genuinely cool and unique designs that obviously fit with the monster associated. I think it's always been one of the best parts of progressing in Monster Hunter. Some of the most satisfying weapons to use and just look at, to work and then unlock them, and then the feeling of using them for the first time, it feels great. And obviously that's very important in regards to layered gear, outfits and weapons too. So yeah, big relief to see them learn from that and say that we will 100% have unique designs for each weapon and each monster this time around. So maybe the World weapon meme can remain in the past. But yeah, that all came from a little section of a main interview. It's just an important thing to talk about. The real interview was about Wilds and its new approach to the starting set, be that weapons or the equipment. We've seen quite a lot of that in great detail now thanks to the first beta, in cinematics and gameplay. It's the Hope set alongside the Hope weapons. The joy of what I was referring to there was brought up in the opening of that interview. Players hunting monsters to collect the unique gear, weapons and armor, and the satisfaction of completing a very cool set. Now the interview involved the art director for the game, Fujioka, who explained the idea behind Monster Hunter equipment. While the range of our designs has now grown broader, we used to be very conscious of the idea that if you're wearing Rathalos equipment, you need to look like Rathalos. And I guess this reflects the fact that original designs definitely made you match the monster, and while they still clearly do that, they do separate it more, it would seem. It was referenced in that talk, say the Rompompolo set, as we've now seen it properly. You're more like a mix of a plague doctor and a mad scientist. And you know, that vibe, that concept, it does match the vibe of Rompompolo. They've got the right colours, they've got details like the big red eyes, just such as the monster has, but the two are ultimately pretty different. Rompompolo's weapons appear to be a great example of that mix of silly and serious too. We see all the hammer originally, where it's almost like this living weapon, with a brain exposed and pulsing life to it, which is pretty incredible. But that treads the line of serious and silly very well, where they go a bit crazy with palico armor, where we've now seen that the Rompompolo palico armor is somewhat silly. It's like a brain in a jar where the palico's head should be. So I appreciate it. It's done very well. But that's where Fujioka brings up the new concept for starting sets. We saw this clearly in Rise, and now once again in Wilds, where they've gone even harder. Fujioka revealed that he designed the 14 starting weapons from scratch, which is the first time he's ever done it in this way. Referring back to how normally as a new hunter, you'd maybe have more primitive or very simple weapons, whereas the Hope weapons, there's a lot more experience and powerful feel to it, like you're immediately a threat. A great example of that will be the Great Sword, where they show it in the opening cinematic, where it's a huge hunk of sharpened metal that has a lot of experience layered into it. The details, like the different leather handle grips, such as the hole in the middle where it has those leather straps wrapped around it, allowing for adjustment of grip for different control and swings and motions. It is subtle, but I think it suggests that experience and specific management of a weapon with how it's used. Fujioka tells us that this time the protagonist is essentially a chosen hunter. Therefore, it wouldn't be right for that hunter to have plain or primitive gear. He said he wants to make us feel like we're some sort of star hunter immediately, even in the starting equipment. And that's how they designed the Hope stuff. These images you're seeing are the newly revealed concept art designs for the two versions of the Hope set. There's something about the hood or the collar that suggests experience to me, the little hidden hat. The whole set can be modified and changed, similar to what we said with the Great Sword. It looks like, based on what you're dealing with, you can mess with the set. If you're in a hot area, you could take off layers or put more on in a cold. But if you're, say, in a sandstorm, each of the sets has something you can cover your face and head with, all based on this hunter being experienced in lots of different environments. Anyway, this is about where Tsukuda mentioned the whole world weapon design and how in Wilds everything's going to have that unique design. But they go on to say that the starting weapons are said to reflect the story of an experienced hunter here to investigate far from the first hunt. They're very proud of this, stating that you, in theory, could use this set all the way to the end and your hunter wouldn't look out of place. In fact, it would make sense. Fujioka explained that they've given more attention to the Hope set than, well, any other equipment in the game. And so he has a lot to say about it. Let me directly quote him. Previous games in the series have had separate upper body and lower body armor, and we couldn't actually depict them coming together to create something like a coat. We just had to make each piece its own part due to gameplay design and how the game managed it. But I wanted to see if we could make a single flowing hooded coat. And we made that happen in this game by investing a lot of in-game resources into that. Of course, players are going to find lots of different pieces of equipment as they proceed through the game, and we also want them to keep trying out new weapon, one after the next. That's why we attempted to make the Hope series one that doesn't stand out too much, but still has that strong sense of elegant coolness. So, in short, they've put a lot of effort into the equipment in Wilds, even down to the starting set, where I think they've smashed it out the park as a very iconic set for Wilds. But it's a huge relief that they've taken equipment and unique weapons so seriously, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing all the different designs and stuff we're going to find out about the new monsters and what outfits they might have. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight that interview and the perspective that provides. I've really appreciated these interviews especially. We're thinking of maybe doing a big recap of the biggest and best stuff from this whole month of new information soon. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed the talk today. I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world our stage. Goodbye.